Everybody else has a claim, and Tony said this one was going to be mine. I'd like to get going on it until I can't really put a plan in place.
The drill bit hit empty space at exactly 3 a.m. It shouldn't have happened. According to the survey logs, that ground was solid bedrock. But when the pressure dropped and the stale air hissed out of the borehole, Monica knew the maps were lying. She dropped a camera down the shaft, expecting to see mud. Instead, she saw hand-cut timbers and the dull shimmer of stacked bars. This wasn't a mining deposit, it was a stash.
There's a nice little piggy bank sitting down there. There's nothing wrong with it.
And the man who buried it was standing right outside the trailer, telling her to shut it all down. The warning in the water. The Yukon does not forgive mistakes, and it definitely does not care about your bank account. When the storm finally broke, the Beets crew was looking at a disaster. 2 weeks of nonstop rain had turned the cut into a swamp. The sluices were ripped apart, the haul roads were sludge, and the main pit, the one meant to save their season, was underwater. Tony Beets stood there staring at the flood. He didn't have to say a word. The silence was loud enough. It was another lost cut, another fortune washed downstream. To the crew, it looked like the end of the road. But Monica was not looking at the mud. She was looking at the monitors in the control shack, and what she saw made zero sense.
Eventually, I'd like to make it off the bottom of the list. It would be nice to see what comes out of that cut, and we cannot do that until the pump is down there, drying out that cut.
Through the static of the storm damage, the ground sensors were lighting up. It was ghostly. Thin golden spikes were pulsing on the screen in a spot that should have been barren. This area was marked as waste. Tony had signed off on it himself years ago. It was supposed to be nothing but tailings and clay. But the deeper the floodwater pulled the dirt away, the stronger the signal got. It was like the storm had peeled back a layer of skin, revealing a pulse underneath that had been beating for decades.
Frozen ground.
It looks like these old timers knew what to dig, huh?
Yeah.
So, but what we should do is we should go deep.
That night, the camp was dead quiet. The generators were off, the lights were out, and the crew was sleeping off the defeat. But Monica could not sleep. She slipped out to the pit, boots sinking into the freezing muck. She fired up the emergency pumps, aiming them straight at the black water in the trench. It was risky. Kevin buzzed in over the radio, his voice crackling. He told her she was burning fuel they did not have. He warned her that Tony would lose his mind if he found out she was wasting diesel on a dead pit. Monica just muted the radio. She had a gut feeling, and in the Klondike, you follow your gut or you go broke. By 3 in the morning, the water had dropped enough to see the bottom, and that is when the air left her lungs. It wasn't just gravel down there. Lining the edge of the pit were wooden planks. These were hand-cut cedar, wedged deep into the clay, gray with age, but still holding strong. Nature does not lay planks. Someone had built a structure down here a long time ago. She climbed down into the hole, the cold biting through her jacket. She ran a gloved hand over the wood. Near the center, half buried in the silt, something metallic caught the beam of her flashlight. She wiped away the grime. It was a rusted metal tag, corroded but legible. It read, Lot 7, Beets Prospect, 1989. Monica stared at it. 1989 was the year the family nearly lost everything. It was the year nobody talked about, the year the records went dark.
Dirt movement came natural, equipment came natural, 7 days a week, 14 hours a day. And that lasted for the full 6 months. No days off, no crop. Not everybody can do that.
If this structure was from back then, why was it marked as waste? Why was it buried instead of mined? She went back to the main cabin before the sun came up, her heart hammering against her ribs. She dug through the old steel trunk where Tony kept his logbooks. These things were ancient, yellowed paper smelling of old tobacco and diesel. She flipped through yield notes and weather logs until she found a small black notebook with no label. Inside, there were sketches, rough drawings of the valley, hand-drawn ridges and claim lines. But one page stopped her cold. It showed a jagged tunnel line running directly beneath the pit she was standing in just hours ago. There were 3 words scrawled next to it in Tony's handwriting: Canyon Drift, too deep, unstable. Monica pulled out her tablet and overlaid the sketch onto the modern GPS grid. The lines matched perfectly. The waste pit was sitting directly on top of this abandoned drift. But here's the catch. The old operation had dug way deeper than anyone admitted. If that drift had collapsed before they mined it out, there could be pay dirt trapped down there. But the wooden planks suggested something else. You don't shore up a collapse with neat cedar planks. You shore up something you want to keep safe. She closed the book and shoved it into her jacket. The sun was just starting to bleed over the horizon, painting the snow gold. But Monica wasn't watching the sunrise. She was realizing that her father had been sitting on a secret for 30 years, and if she was right, he didn't just miss the gold, he hid it. But digging it up was going to start a war she wasn't sure she could win. What she found next would turn a simple hunch into a family crisis. Tony Beets gets suspicious. Monica knew she couldn't just ask for permission. Tony would shut her down before she even started the engine. In the Beets family, you don't ask, you prove.
It will never be top priority. Tony Beets will only ever think what he is doing is important. He is hyper-focused on what he is doing.
She waited until the camp went dark again. The machines were silent shadows against the snow. She grabbed Juan, the one operator she knew could keep his mouth shut. He was good with delicate work, and tonight they needed to be surgical. They hauled a portable micro-drill down into the trench. It was a small rig, quiet but powerful enough to punch through frozen gravel. She told Juan it was just a calibration test. Juan looked at her, then at the dark pit, and didn't ask a single question. He knew better. The drill hummed to life, a low vibration that seemed too loud in the silent valley. The auger bit sliced into the earth. 5 feet, 10 feet, just mud and rock. Then at 12 feet, the machine screeched. The bit locked up against something hard. Monica signaled him to pull the sample. The drill whined as it retracted, pulling up a slurry of dark, wet material. Juan shined his light on the sample tube. They both froze. It wasn't rock. It was gold. Fine, raw flakes suspended in dark sand, glittering like fire and oil under the LED beam. This wasn't tailings. Tailings are the leftovers, the garbage dirt. This was virgin ground, rich and heavy. Juan whispered that it wasn't natural.
That looks like virgin ground to me.
Monica nodded. She bagged the sample and marked it equipment test. No one else could know. Not yet. They packed up the rig fast, fueled by adrenaline and the fear of getting caught. But as they climbed out of the pit, Monica saw a silhouette by the main cabin. Tony. He was standing on the porch, a cup of coffee in his hand, watching the faint glow of their headlamps. He didn't yell. He didn't wave. He just watched. That was worse. Tony Beets screaming is normal. Tony Beets silent is dangerous. The next morning, the tension was thick enough to choke on. Tony cornered her by the excavator. His voice was low, sharp. He asked why she was burning diesel on a hole he told her to abandon. Monica didn't flinch. She told him straight up that he wrote that ground off 30 years ago, but it wasn't dead. She told him there was activity down there. Tony's jaw tightened. He told her she was wasting time and that she was moving to the new cut immediately. It was an order. Monica stared back at him. She nodded once, said fine, and walked away. But she didn't stop. She just changed tactics. That night, she slipped into the control cabin and reactivated the deep ground sensors she had buried near the drift line. The screens flickered to life, ghostly green patterns dancing across the radar grid. For hours, nothing. Then a spike. The signal formed a dome-shaped void about 20 feet beneath the trench. A hollow space. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, expanding the scan. It wasn't a tunnel, it was a sealed cavity, a room, and the density reading around it was off the charts. It looked like something metallic was trapped inside. This was the moment everything shifted. This wasn't just a forgotten mine shaft, it was a vault. She called in 2 night shift guys loyal to her. They brought in a casing drill, something that could bore a clean hole into the void without collapsing it. The machine growled against the frozen earth. Suddenly, the pressure gauge dropped to 0. The bit punched through. A soft hiss rose from the pipe. Air escaped, warm, stale air that smelled like iron and old dust. It was air that hadn't been breathed in 3 decades. Monica lowered a bore camera down the shaft. The feed popped up on the monitor, grainy and black and white. At first, it was just jagged shadows. Then the camera twisted and the light hit something. It was tools, pickaxes, rusted buckets. And behind them, massive slabs half buried in the sediment. Juan gasped. "That is not a natural deposit," he whispered.
The old mine shaft goes down over 40 feet. A sure sign there is gold-rich pay that runs deep.
The camera zoomed in. The slabs were stacked, uniform, and even through the grain of the camera feed, they gave off a heavy, dark gleam. Monica felt the blood drain from her face. She ordered them to seal the borehole immediately. Cover it with gravel. Make it look like nothing happened. Tony would think she had obeyed him. But under that patch of dirt, Monica had just found the key to the mystery. She drove to Dawson City that morning, leaving the crew behind. She needed to see the official records. The mining office smelled like dust and bureaucracy. She pulled the file for 1989, and there it was, stamped in red ink, revoked. The reason listed was unreported findings, site closed by order of mining council, but the description of the location was blacked out. Thick black ink covered the coordinates, the assay data, everything. Tony hadn't just failed here, he had been shut down. Or maybe he had shut himself down to hide what he found. On the drive back, her phone started blowing up. The night crew had talked. Rumors were flying. People were saying Monica found a ghost mine, but when she got back to camp, it wasn't ghosts waiting for her. It was Tony, and he knew she had gone to town. The confrontation that followed would tear the camp apart. Breaking the seal. You can't keep a secret in a gold camp. It spreads faster than the flu. By the time Monica pulled her truck up to the claim, the whispers were loud. The crew was looking at her differently. They knew she was onto something, and they knew Tony was blocking it. Monica decided to go nuclear. She waited for darkness, then brought the big rig in. Not a micro drill this time, she brought the excavator and the heavy-duty pump. She was going to drain the void and breach it physically. Tony heard the engines. Of course he did. He came storming out of his trailer, face like thunder. "Don't stop!" Monica yelled over the roar of the diesel. "Keep drilling!" Tony reached the edge of the pit. "What the hell are you doing?" he screamed. "You are going to collapse the whole claim!" Monica jumped down from the cab. She didn't yell back. She just pointed to the monitor connected to the bore camera. "Look at it, Dad. Just look." On the screen, the feed was clear now. The camera was panning over the stacked slabs inside the void. The light caught the edges. It was unmistakable. Gold. Not dust. Bars. Rough, poured bars of raw gold, stacked like firewood. Tony stared at the screen. The anger drained out of his face, replaced by something that looked like fear. "Turn it off," he said quietly. "Turn it all off."
Gentlemen, at no point stand underneath the load. At no point. Guy, do you hear that? Say this good night. Stop swinging at you. Pull it this way, bitch.
"Why?" Monica challenged him. "Why bury this? It's millions of dollars, Dad. It's right there." "You don't understand," Tony said, his voice tight. "That gold cost me more than you know. It's not about the money, it's about staying alive." But it was too late. Kevin, standing behind them, had been filming on his phone. He sent the clip to a buddy in Dawson. Within an hour, it was on the internet. The explosion was instant. The video titled "Monica Beets Finds Secret Gold Vault" hit 1 million views in 4 hours. The forums went crazy. People were analyzing every frame. Was it pirate treasure? Was it a government stash? The hashtag #Beets Vault started trending worldwide. Discovery Channel producers were calling every phone in the camp. The secret was out. The media storm forced Tony's hand. He couldn't hide it anymore. The mining inspectors showed up the next day demanding to see the site. If Tony tried to cover it up now, he would lose his license permanently. So they opened it up. The day of the breach was chaos. Drones were buzzing overhead like mosquitoes. The heavy excavator peeled back the frozen roof of the vault. The ground groaned, shifting as the pressure released. So was this pure luck, or did Monica just outsmart the greatest miner in the Yukon? Finding 85 million is crazy, but finding a second vault? That is legendary. If you think they should dig deeper, hit that like button and subscribe. You do not want to miss what comes out of the ground next.
Ah! Yay! Just going to show you some of the magnificent things that I get to see when I'm out on the ground. And you can too. It's just a matter of lots of research so you don't waste a lot of money, and time on the ground. But even if you don't find gold out here, sometimes some of the country's so special to look at, you sort of don't miss it that much. I've walked about, I don't know, 3 or 4 Ks to where I am now, and I can just start to see dust coming up from different roads out further from me, so I'm starting to get up in altitude. Alright, be back on with some gold next.